You boys are getting into your feelings on me. You should embrace it. It could be one of our realest moments. The flows start to feel familiar, don't it? Oh, man. Spency Boy back in here on some MX Sim. So this is the 2021 RF Japan Supercross track right here. This is kind of like the pre-season type, pro RF Supercross track in the game. This track should give you a pretty good look at what you could come to expect for 2022 Pro RF Supercross tracks. It should give you a pretty good look at that, and it really worries me. It really worries me because this track right here is a perfect example of everything that I hate about this whole modern, new age of RF track designs. It's a prime example of that. RF, you just keep showing me that you still have no idea what the hell you're doing with these track designs. You just keep proving to me over and over again that you have no idea what you're doing. Some of you boys need to come to this realization that this right here is not tacky levels of dirt traction. This is literally concrete, bro. This is literally future SX level, concrete level, grippy type traction to this track. This don't even feel like dirt anymore to me. They have taken this more grippier and grippier traction to such a level at this point that I shit you not, this literally does not even feel like dirt to me anymore. I mean, you could actually you could swap out the dirt decal on this track with a concrete decal, and I swear to God, I wouldn't even notice the difference. It wouldn't even be all that different. That's how much traction this track actually has to it. This is such a critical issue I've been trying to explain to you boys with this new age of these RF tracks. They're just going more traction and more traction and more traction. Where's the limit at, RF? Apparently you don't seem to have a limit because you just keep doing more and more and more. You know that you have too much traction on a track in this game whenever it gets to the point where the bike gets upset in the corner for no apparent reason, or it gets real jarred up in the corner, it gets real upset in the corner just from simply going through the corner. That's how you know you've got too much traction, and that's exactly how this track is right here. Oh my God, what are you doing, RF? I tell you what, I do not envy you boys pro racing in 2022, RF pro racing in this game, because they're back on their bullshit. They're still doing the same shit. This is probably the exact kind of traction that you're going to get with the 2022 Pro RF Supercross tracks. And if you can't come to that realization that this is concrete level traction, this is not just tacky dirt, you need to rethink your shit, bro. Because I'm telling you, this is overkill levels of traction. There's not even any glide feeling to the dirt anymore. There's no glide feeling when you're going through the corners anymore. And I get it. You don't want to make a track that feels like ice, but you get to a point where you get so much traction that it very quickly stops feeling like dirt and starts feeling like concrete. Do you understand what I'm saying? I mean, I made an entire custom track, Supercross track in this game, Future SX, that was totally a concrete Supercross track, and this track's traction right here exactly reminded me of that. I mean, this is crazy, bro. Crazy. Like, who the hell thought this was proper traction to have on a track in this game? I have no idea. But, to the untrained eye, it could be pretty easy to hop on this track and be like, oh, it's not too bad, Spence. I don't really know what you're talking about. To the untrained eye or to the untrained player in this game, you're not really going to understand what I'm talking about. Because this is something you've got to have rode on a ton of tracks in this game. You got to have rode on a bunch of older tracks in this game to really understand what I'm saying. It's so easy to get tricked up into this modern day age of the way they design these RF tracks, and they've slowly been implementing this more and more grippier traction over these past few years that I feel like a lot of you boys that are pro racing in this shit, you've gotten so used to it at this point that this shit just feels normal to you. And I noticed this because whenever I got like 20 or 30 laps deep into this track, it started to feel more normal to me too. But that's all in your head because you can get used to anything. Do you understand what I'm saying? But that doesn't mean this is proper traction, okay? This is without a doubt way too much traction, even for the tackiest of tacky brownie mix dirt that you're trying to make in this game. It's too much. It's too much. There's absolutely no slide glide to the dirt feeling of this track, which is terrible in a game like MX Simulator because there's no cushion to this game. You know, the dirt is not movable at all to begin with. So if you make a track with too grippy of traction, it instantly starts to feel like concrete because the bike is not gliding in the corners. It's not sliding at all. You have to have a little bit of that in a game that doesn't have any cushion to the dirt. You have to have some amount of that. And this track simply doesn't have that at all. I mean, you can have the most acceleration, gearing, whatever you want to do, and that bike is going to hook up in that corner like you're literally on a damn crotch rocket. I mean, it's crazy. It's insane level traction, bro. This is just another prime example of what I talk about when I say this shit ain't even the same anymore. It ain't even the same thing anymore. These new RF track makers don't really understand what they're doing, apparently, or they wouldn't be making tracks with this level of traction. That's all there is to it. RF, I'm telling you this for your own damn good. You got it to the point where it don't even feel like dirt anymore, man. Like, holy shit. Oh my God. I just had to come in here and explain that about this track because it's a prime example of why I'm not pro racing anymore. You know, fuck talking about the Erode, fuck talking about everything else they're doing wrong. They can't even get the damn traction right. They can't even get the traction right anymore. I don't know what this fantasy pipe dream is that RF has with just adding more and more and more traction. But you're past the threshold at this point. You're past the limit at this point. Do you understand what I'm saying? This back section right here on this track's pretty cool. It's not as bad on this because it's a little bit more of a sandy traction, but I mean the rest of the dirt on this track, oh my God, man. It's so jarring and upsetting to the bike. Instead of just naturally gliding through the corners, it gives you this feeling of like, you know what I mean? The bike's like it gets so jarred and you can just tell there's too much traction for its own good. And it changes everything about the way the game feels and the physics feel and the track feel. It affects everything. But like, I have absolutely zero interest in racing on concrete tracks. Like, I mean, I genuinely don't understand. The only way you could think this is actually good traction is if you're kind of new to the game. You don't really understand what's going on. You've not rode on a bunch of other tracks. You're not, super fast in this game. Or if you're caught up in that new RF age of track design and you've just gotten used to this. That's the only way I can even begin to understand somebody thinking this is actually proper traction right here. This just simply isn't, dude. This ain't it, bro. I'm telling you, this ain't it, bro. You better rethink your shit for 22 Supercross RF, which you're probably not, because you've been on this road for the past few years of doing more traction. So it just seems like you're going to continue down that road. And you got to love this quad right here that you can just barely hit on a 450, right? Which is cool and all if you're not running a road in the game. But you know, the fact that this game doesn't actually have cushion to the dirt, and when you start making ruts on jump faces with the road, I can already tell you, a jump rhythm like this with a quad that's this big, everybody's going to hit it in qualifying on the 450, but as soon as you get into that main event, I'm talking 3 laps into the main event with the road turned on, and there will not be a soul hitting that quad at all. It'll just become completely pointless and not even feasible. It's like, what are you doing? Seriously, RF, what are you doing? You're still making quads of the distance that they would have been pre-Erode, and you expect people to be able to just hit that through a main event with the road turned on? Like, what the hell are you doing? You can't do that. But that's something that was so cool about pre-Erode in this game, was the fact that you could have a big quad like that on this track, and you could actually still attempt to hit it, you know, all 20 laps of the main event on a 450. But the second you put a road on a track, I'm telling you, 3 or 4 laps into it, it just eliminates that. And then everybody's just going to hit the same triple single to the inside. Bro, I've played this game long enough. I've pro raced in this game long enough to understand that. It's just like, bro, RF is still doing their same bullshit. They're still doing it. But it's actually funny level. It's actually comical levels of how much traction there is on this track right here. It's unbelievable. I mean, this isn't Supermoto. You do realize that, right, RF? This isn't street bike crotch rocket racing. Okay, I would like for the traction to feel actually like dirt. You know, that'd be kind of cool. Right? Like if you think back to the old days of the RF tracks, if you go back to like 2011, 2012, those tracks is what I would call like too slick. You know, they kind of feel like ice. But over the years, RF has just added more and more traction, right? So like 2012 has more traction than 2011. 13 has more than 12. 14 has more than 13. And so on and so forth, right? But I feel like they got to that prime point with the traction where it wasn't slick, it wasn't too slick, but it also wasn't too much traction right about those years of like 2014 to 2017, right? They had it right in that perfect zone of where it didn't feel like ice, but at the same time it didn't feel like concrete, but they've just continued that past 2017, and they've just kept adding more traction and kept adding more traction. And now we're literally to that point where it feels like concrete. Straight up. No other way around it. It is what it is. So I'm just telling you, some of you boys, you're real caught up in that whole RF system to where you don't even realize what's actually going on with these tracks anymore. You don't understand what's going on anymore. And apparently RF doesn't understand what's going on anymore because they're still doing it. They're doing it even more so. I mean, yeah, the jump like transitions and the width of this track is not too bad, and the outside outdoor section of this track with all that pre-made is really cool. But again, when you have concrete level traction, it kind of kills the whole experience of the track. It kills the whole vibe of the track. Do you see what I'm saying? And I just simply don't think they're going to have this level of pre-made like in this outdoor section of this track. They're just not going to make this kind of pre-made in 2022 RF Supercross tracks. This was basically a Japan Supercross track specific, kind of silly section type thing that they did. I can almost guarantee you they're not going to have this level of pre-made in this area on any other RF 2022 Supercross track in this game. I come in here and I explain these things, RF, for your own damn good. I'm not in here just to try to beat down on you or try to... Bro, I'm trying to explain to you what you're genuinely doing wrong to try to help you. I don't want to see this game, have worse track designs. I want to see it have better track designs. I want to see it have more, replayable tracks that you can go back and play years down the road, unlike the 2018 and 19 outdoor tracks in this game that had basically no pre-made, I'm trying to say these things to help you. But you're just not getting it. You're just not, you're not changing your ways. You're still doing this dumb shit. And I don't know why. But you have taken this traction to such a level that it's just unbelievable. I mean, it's actually unbelievable. But, you can get used to anything. You know what I mean? And that's the problem, I feel. A lot of guys that are really pro racing in this game, they've gotten used to this shit, and you forget so easily. You get so used to that super grippy traction that you forget you kind of lose your scale of what is too much traction and what's too slick of traction or whatever. I feel like that's happened to a lot of you boys. You've lost your scale of what's actual proper tacky dirt level traction. But even the most tackiest dirt I've ever rode on in my life was not this tacky. Do you understand what I'm saying? This is slot car level, concrete, street bike. It's just unbelievable. But again, they trick you up with everything looks really good on this track. Like the ground decal, the stadium is really awesome. Everything looks great. But they have some critical core deal breakers on this track right here that if you're not deep enough in this game, you don't understand certain things about it. You know what I mean? And especially to a slower rider, they're always going to prefer a track that's got more traction on it because, they're sliding to begin with. You know what I mean? They're sliding more in the corners and can't get the bike to go fast enough in the corners and stuff. So, all of your beginner, amateur, intermediate style players, they're instantly going to like a, super traction level track more than they're going to like a normal dirt level, traction to a track. So it skews everything. The opinions about everything get skewed with that. But I'm just telling some of you boys, if you think this is proper traction for a MX simulator track, you've got yourself tricked up, dog. You're fooling yourself. This is not proper traction. This is dog water. I mean, oh man. So, nonetheless, this really worries me for 2022 RF Supercross tracks in this game. Man. But I'm not surprised. Of course RF is making tracks like this. Of course they are, because they're not the same RF that they used to be, like I've been trying to tell you boys. This rhythm right here is pretty cool. You can jump over that table and then do a triple-triple. You probably could still hit that rhythm even in like a main event with terrain deformation on, but certainly not that quad on the second rhythm of this track. They just simply made that too big to be feasible to hit when you get Erode on this track. Straight up. But like they've taken all of the glide feeling out of the dirt. This doesn't feel like a smooth experience when you're going through these corners. This feels like a janky, jarring experience. I mean, it just does, man. And I get it. You don't want to make a track too slick. There's a fine line there. But this is way past that line of too much traction for its own damn good. It's way past that, dude. Way, way, way past that. Like, you're into a whole nother stratosphere here, RF. With this level of traction, you just are. Oh, man. So either way, I just want to come here and kind of explain. RF is back on their bullshit. And yeah, Another prime example of why I'm not pro racing nowadays, I just have no ambition to go in there and race on concrete. I have no ambition for that. And, it gets into that point. To be even more specific, this kind of feels like you're riding on concrete mixed with sand, if you could just imagine that. Over these past few years of these RF tracks, they've just been making more friction, more traction, and it just feels so bizarre to me nowadays. Feels so weird to me. Like, it gets to that point where when you get more friction to the dirt, it starts to cap off your throttle control and the acceleration of the bike. You start to cap all that off to where everybody's just wide open everywhere and jumping everything perfectly. They've kind of taken away that, like I say, when you add more friction to it, it caps off, makes everything so much more basic and streamlined and simplistic. If there's no chance of sliding in the corner because there's so much damn traction, it kind of takes away a little bit of that throttle control, doesn't it? It takes away a little bit of that skill in the corner, that, having to think about what you're doing because there is a chance of sliding out. That's not really how this track is. It literally feels like, it's like there's no difference between having full traction and then having no traction. Do you understand what I'm saying? And crashing. It's like there's no in between on this track. You either have 100% concrete traction or you're on the ground. There's no in between. There's no slide a little bit but then still save it. There's no, do you see what I'm saying? Oh, man. But, RF, keep doing what you're doing, man. You're doing a really good job, man. It's just a great job, dude. Oh, man.